Please welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Baruah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, we're thrilled you're all here. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us. You know today is an important day when my boss, Dennis Archer, wears a tie. So we have to live up to that. So we have some incredible data for you all today, and we have a world-class panel to follow. So your time is valuable, but I think we're going to use it very, very well today. In addition to thanking you, I have a handful of other thank yous that I want to do before we get started. First, I want everyone to recognize the Wayne County Executive, Warren Evans. Also, I want to recognize the many members of the Detroit Regional Chamber Board who are here today. Clearly, I take a lot of adult supervision, and they're out in force today to make sure I do my job. So to all my board of directors, thank you so very much. We're honored to have you all. And I can't go around to mention all the important people in the room, but there are some people I do want to highlight. You obviously met our this year's chair, Dennis Archer Jr., but our incoming chair is in the house. Please welcome Stephen Polk. And one of the initiatives that is really going to be highlighted through the data that we're sharing here today is the Chamber's Economic Development Initiative. We serve as a coordinating entity for the 11 counties in Southeast Michigan, and the co-chair of our Economic Development Program and one of our former chairs is also in the House, Chip McClure. And finally, I'll add my thanks to the great team at Citizens Bank. Events like this and the work that we do at the Detroit Regional Chamber would not be possible without our great sponsors. Thank you so much for Citizens Bank, and I want to add my personal thanks to Rick Hampson and his beautiful wife, Julie, who have not only become great corporate citizens in this region, but they've become dear friends for Lisa and myself. So Rick, thank you so very much. So we appreciate the 350 plus people who are here today to listen to this data. You have the report at your seats, and we want you to talk about it. We want you to socialize it. But we want more than just 350 people here to socialize it. So fire up your Twitter machine or your Facebook machine, wind them up, and share the data that you hear about today. The good, the bad, whatever. If you've got thoughts, please share it because we want this data to get out. Overall, we have an incredibly positive story to share, and we want you to help us share this data. So, we know we're in Michigan, and Michigan truly is the comeback state in the nation. The progress that this state has made in population growth, in employment, in our various rankings, in business friendliness or attractiveness as a state is nothing short of remarkable. But much of Michigan's impressive growth is driven by what's happening right here in the Detroit region. It is a symbiotic relationship. Our governor and this state has played a central role in the recovery of the city of Detroit and thus the Detroit region, and we are now paying back the state with our leading economic growth in the Detroit region. We're making Michigan's numbers look good. And that is a great way to look at the state of Michigan, which is a way that we really haven't looked at Michigan in quite some time, which is that we are one Michigan. And as important as the Detroit region is, all parts of Michigan are important, and all parts of Michigan need to succeed. And certainly here in the Detroit region, we're doing our part. And I want to thank all of you for all of your individual efforts and your corporate efforts to make Michigan a successful and thriving place. So here in the Detroit region, you cannot go a day without turning on the television, without opening up a newspaper, without seeing yet another positive headline about what's happening in our region. You can't see a day or a week go by without a company announcement saying, hey, we're coming to the region. A company announcing, we're expanding our footprint. That is impressive. Or a new restaurant opening up in the city of Detroit. You also can't go a day without seeing another hoodie-wearing, earbud-wielding, semi-shaven hipster announcing a new app or developing a new solar-powered scooter that is self-driving. You're going to want one for Christmas, trust me. And that shows the entrepreneurial spirit that is not just alive, but is thriving across the state and in our region and in our core city of Detroit. And just think of how this narrative has changed. Think of the headlines that just flashed before you and how that compared to years ago when Time magazine put the old Packard plant on the cover and put the headline underneath it that said, "The tragic situation of Detroit." Those days are long over. The national narrative about this region has changed dramatically. And so why are we talking about regions? We think about often, we think about a city, we think about a county, but why are regions important? And we are focused on a region because we are a regional organization, the 11 counties in southeast Michigan. But we are focused not just on how one city does or one county does, but we want the entire southeast Michigan region to be successful, and we want that to contribute to the entire success of the state of Michigan. And regions are important because in the global 21st century marketplace, traditional boundaries that we often think about, like a city boundary or a county boundary, really don't matter that much anymore. Businesses, when they invest, they look far beyond what a particular city or county has to offer. They want to know what the region offers. Because you're going to site a factory in one place, a corporate headquarters in another place, you're going to live in another place, you're going to recreate in another place, and you're going to send your kids to school in another place. And all of those areas need to be attractive. We don't need, in southeast Michigan, an attractive area. We need attractive areas. We need attractive cities of all sizes and of all personalities. We need attractive suburbs. We need attractive rural areas. We need attractive industrial sites. Because it's the power of choice that allows people, companies, and regions to be successful. And then when you think about what we're competing against, if we go to market as just one city or one county, we're going to market in the global marketplace in a world where there are 20 cities on this planet that have 20 million residents or more. And there are over 400 cities on the planet that have 1 million cities or more. So even Detroit, at our largest city at roughly 700,000 inhabitants, we're not even in the top 400. So if we go to market as an entire region, we have a lot more assets to put on the field. So who is our region? Our region is the 11 counties in southeast Michigan. And when we talk about the 11 counties, we care about all 11 counties equally. And I want to recognize my counterpart, Tim Herman, from the Flint, Genesee Chamber of Commerce, who's here today. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. And Flint is an important part of our region. It is a city that we all care about. And aren't we all proud of the progress that Flint has made? So our region stretches up to Flint, but it's the 11 counties that is 7,000 square miles, 5.4 million talented, hardworking people, 300,000 businesses, 13 of them in the Fortune 500. This is power, because we get to go to market in the international arena with 5.4 million people and 300,000 businesses. Far better than if we went to market with any one county or any one city. So, this is the State of the Region report. You have it in front of you, and this report does three things. First of all, it tracks our region's progress on key economic metrics over time. We're gauging how we're doing based on how we have done. That's number one. Number two, it compares our region over time to 9 other competing regions, so we can see how we're doing compared to our competitors across the country. And third, it serves as the basis for our online data reporting system that our economic development partners across the region can use through our website to create their own individual customized economic reports, either for the region or for their city or for their county, and that's free of charge for any one of our 11 economic development partners. So let's dive in. So what do we care about most? Unemployment rate is the number that we think about a lot. So the good news is, and there's a lot of good news here, is that the state of Michigan is now below the national average in unemployment. How many people would have thought 10 years ago that the state of Michigan would be below the national average in unemployment? Incredibly impressive progress. In the Detroit region, we have a similarly successful story. We are at 5.9%, which is just 0.8% above the national average. Now, that's not exactly where we'd want to be. We want to be below the national average, but think of it this way. In 2009, this region was 7 points above the national average, and that's what I call tremendous progress. Per capita income, this is a pocketbook issue. How much money do we all have to spend as residents in Southeast Michigan? We have seen 13.6% growth since 2010. Hugely impressive and significantly above the national average. And we're ranking very high compared to our national competitors. Population growth. Governor Snyder, Mayor Duggan have all made population growth a key priority, and we support that. Our goal is to grow the entire region. Because if we grew one area, one city, at the expense of another area in our city, like if we moved somebody in from Southfield to Detroit, or from Macomb to Troy, what does that do? It doesn't change our unemployment rate. It doesn't change our per capita income. It doesn't change our educational attainment. All it does is change a commuting pattern. So we want the entire region to grow. The good news is that our region has stabilized its population. After years of steady and predictable decline, we have now stabilized. And that puts us in a position to grow over time, especially when you factor in so much of the other good news that this report has to offer. Public transit has obviously been in the news quite a bit, and we at the Detroit Regional Chamber continue to consider regional transit one of the core priorities for our region. And I want to thank one of the people who is going to be on this stage in just a few minutes. Ignore the flashing lights. Your eyes are not going crazy. Sorry about the lights. We're having a little lighting problem. But I want to thank Rip Rapson, the president of the Kresge Foundation, for your incredible leadership on regional transit. So while we all know that the regional millage failed, barely failed, but it did fail, and that was certainly a setback to our goal of reaching 55 million public transit rides per year, we do have good news to celebrate around regional transit. Again, the Q line starts in just a handful of weeks, and that is going to transform how we transit ourselves in the downtown and midtown area. We do have the Regional Transit Authority mechanism, which was passed by the legislature, and that's good news. And Mayor Duggan has done incredible work doing what he can with the DDOT bus system. There are more buses on the road, more buses are being maintained well, the routes have been revised, and they're running on time more than they ever have in DDOT's recent history, and that's all very good news. But we do have more work to do on regional transit. Home values. This is something that impacts us all. 13.3% growth in the last 5 years in our home values in Southeast Michigan. That puts us at the top of the heap, way above the national average and way above our competing regions. Now, home values still remain slightly below 2009 levels, so we have a little ways to go, but the amount of progress we've made in home values is nothing short of remarkable. Gross domestic product, that is how big is our economy in this region. And again, we are outpacing the region. Our region is outpacing the national average, and that's one of our core metrics at the Detroit Regional Chamber. 12% growth since 2010, and we outstripped the national average by 2.3%. Strong performance puts us, again, towards the top of our peer group. We can certainly do better. Of the 50 MSAs, Detroit ranks 19th, so we're kind of right there. We can do better, but we're doing very well. But in future years, we really want to see that GDP growth really kind of accelerate. Because if we want our GDP to look like the GDP in total of some of our competing regions like a Dallas or a Seattle or a Denver, we're going to need some outsized growth for an outsized period of time. Job growth, again, very, very highly important to the politicians in the room, but again, as the coordinating regional economic development entity for 11 counties, hugely important to the Detroit Regional Chamber. 225,000 private sector jobs, new private sector jobs in our region since 2010, ranking us 4th amongst our peer group, and 2.3% growth just over last year. Very, very strong job growth that we're seeing across our region. Rick Hampson mentioned innovation and patents, and this is an area where the Southeast Michigan continues to lead. We are an innovation machine, and we need to really celebrate that fact more. And you can see why we are. World-class research universities, the continuing innovation that's coming out of the automotive industry, our technology industry, we are driving innovation, and we have been number one, and we continue to be number one in patents filed of our peer group. And in fact, in 2015 was a record year for us in our region, with over 3,000 patents granted to our region in 2015. Very strong growth. Real estate. You know, if you have looked for industrial space, commercial space, Class A office space, or if you're trying to buy a home, you know that our real estate market is hot, and the numbers tell the story. Our industrial vacancy rate across the entire region is 4%. That is significantly better than the national average. And one of the challenges that we have as an organization is when companies come, they're looking for industrial sites they can just walk into, and frankly, they just don't exist anymore. So we need to start building. Office vacancy rates across the region are close to the national average, which is good. And if you've ever tried to find office space, say in Troy or in downtown Detroit, you know the number is actually lower than the national average. And residential construction permits are up, way up, 128%. So if it's commercial or residential or industrial, the story is good across all 3 chapters of our real estate. Educational attainment. This is an area that we need to work on in this region. We know that the jobs of today and tomorrow reside in the high-skilled arena. If we want to compete and win in the 21st century economy, as residents or as businesses, we need to have the skills to compete. Now, the good news is that the Detroit region is pretty much right at the national average in terms of educational attainment. The bad news is that that's not nearly good enough. We are lagging behind our peers, and if we want that, if we want those companies and those jobs that go with it, we need to work on our K-12 system, and we need more adults that have either a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or a highly skilled certificate. Right now in our region, we're running roughly about 37% of our adult population falls into one of those three categories. Best-in-class regions, not just in this country but across the planet, have 60% of their adults with a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or a highly skilled certificate. So we have work to do in the educational attainment area. The good news is if we just take out this STEM area for educational attainment, we actually do quite well. We are an engineering powerhouse. We have the highest percentage of engineers than any other place in the country, and that shows. And that comes thanks to our auto industry, our technology industry, and our healthcare industry, because we are leaders in all of those areas. So we're doing very well in STEM. Foreign direct investment, we want more companies to welcome them here to Southeast Michigan. And in this front, we're doing very well. Now, 2014 was a banner year for our region with 57 foreign direct investment projects. This last year, in 2015, the most recent data available, we had 41 projects, but those 41 projects created 6,000 jobs for our fellow citizens in this region. Again, very strong and very important. Relatedly, international trade, we care very deeply about how is our region doing exporting our goods and services to the global marketplace. And this is hugely important because over 95% of the world's middle class population don't live in America. And we want to be that global marketer. And the good news is, from Michigan's standpoint, we're doing very well. Michigan is the 8th largest exporting state in the country. And in our region, we are the 6th largest exporting region in the country. And not surprisingly, we are the #1 exporter to Canada and the #2 exporter to Mexico. These are all good things. And the other little factoid is that jobs associated with international trade and exporting pay significantly more than the national average. So that's good news. Mobility. This is a region that owns next generation mobility. And it is our goal to ensure that we own it into the future. We all know that this was the region that put the world on wheels and changed the world forever. But what people don't know is that we're also the leading region for the next generation mobility revolution that's coming. People think it's our friends in California, but it's actually not. There are more projects going underway in Michigan about next generation mobility than any other place in the country or in the planet. That gives us a competitive advantage. And when you think about the incredible testing facilities that we have, M-City, the new GM Kettering facility that's being developed, and the American Center for Mobility at Willow Run, no other place is going to have the testing facilities that we're going to have for next generation mobility than we will have in the Detroit region. And again, when you look at patents, we're blowing the doors off any of our competition. If you take the Detroit and the Ann Arbor regions and combine them, we are so far exceeding our friends in Silicon Valley. It's not even a competition when it comes to mobility-related patents. If you just take Ann Arbor alone, they're producing more patents in next-generation mobility than the Boston and New York regions combined. So the national media likes to say that Silicon Valley is leading in this area. I think this data shows a completely different story. So those are some of the highlights of our report. There's a lot more information in the document you have in front of you, and there's a lot more information that we will have at the Detroit Regional Chamber website. But that's what we have as where we are as a region. But this all ties into our strategy as an organization, which we call Forward Detroit. We're trying to move a set of metrics across this region. And it doesn't matter if you're the Detroit Regional Chamber or another organization focused on economic development. We think there's a common set of metrics around people, around community, around business issues, around talent, around global connectivity, around next generation mobility, that we should all be striving for regardless what kind of organization we are. And we're happy to be the home for all this data and ensuring that we're holding ourselves and our region accountable for hitting some of these key metrics. Because if we don't do this right at this particular moment in time, when we have so much going for us, when will we do it? So we have a huge opportunity. Finally, I just want to thank the over 100 companies in our region who have come forth and said, we are going to support this kind of work and this kind of effort. And organizations like General Motors and DTE Energy, our great friends at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, our partners at the MEDC, and so many other companies have said, we're going to support what you're doing. Not for the glory, there's not a lot of advertising for this, but it's the hard work of actually moving economic metrics. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I too am looking forward to this great panel that we have. Thanks for your attention.